What up, folks? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X Lair to provide you my thoughts, insights, reaction to the latest episode of Twin Peaks. This is episode 15 of 18. There's only 3 episodes left. This episode was interesting. It was a very sort of filler type of episode in the sense that it's filling the gaps that we need to kind of lay the foundation to get us to the end. Whatever it is at the end is going to be, if indeed it's going to be the final ending to the Twin Peaks story, or just the end of the season. Regardless, like, we do see some pieces kind of being moved into places so that, I don't know, something will lead to the ending climax that will make sense of stuff. No, it won't make sense. This is Twin Peaks. This is David Lynch. We're not going to get a complete, clear resolution to whatever it is that we're watching here. But nonetheless, the journey is really enjoyable. I'm really enjoying the season. I enjoyed this episode. So the beginning was a very sort of conventional piece of the Twin Peaks puzzle, right? It was the Nadine with Ed situation where they were kind of finally resolving whatever it was that may have happened in their marriage between, you know, the end of season 2 and season 3. Her basically telling him, we're done, it's cool, you can move forward finally, and be with Norma. So he goes to the R&R diner, and it's a really cool sequence. Like, it's a very normal sequence, but it's a very cool sequence in the way that it's presented. Like, we see the Ed's sort of psychological perspective on the thing, where, like, anytime we're with Ed, we hear the Motown song, and it's sort of a play on, like, your classic kind of, like, the two star-crossed lovebirds finally coming together, but in a very subtle way, in a very Lynchian way. And then the scene gets resolved. She basically gives up whatever she was doing with this business guy that had franchised the R&R diner, and her and Ed got together, and it was a very lovely moment. And I'm sure several fans of the series were very satisfied to finally see these two characters together. And even though it was presented in a very sort of classic kind of narrative type of way, where, like, you know, characters just kind of like finally resolve their differences and come together, and it was presented in almost like this idyllic sort of sequence, I knew that something was up. Like, as soon as it was all very normal and perfect, I was like, what the fuck's going on here? This is not Twin Peaks, but it is Twin Peaks. But something weird's about to fucking happen, and it did. We cut straight to fucking that sequence with Doppel Cooper, Mr. C, where shit is fucking weird. We got some information. The information wasn't necessarily clear, but I don't expect it to be. But it does inform a little bit more that whole sort of storyline and the mythos of what is behind everything, the weirdness, and what is the nature of Doppel Cooper. Anyway, so we see him drive up to that gas station that we saw in episode 8, where all those shadow men, those dirty bearded men, as David Lynch referred to them, were sort of coming out and coming into. We see one there, and he's not an apparition. He's just a regular guy. He meets Mr. C, and then I think Mr. C says, I need to see Philip Jeffries. So I was like, what the fuck? Philip Jeffries? That's David Bowie. So anyway, they start going up the stairs, and, like, they start kind of phasing in and out of reality, and then they do phase out of reality into some other dimension. Who knows? Again, we don't really truly quite understand what is going on as far as, like, the nature of reality in relation to these weird forces that are at work in Twin Peaks. Anyway, so we're taken into this weird kind of shadow world, right? And it's, of course, rooted somewhat in the the type of reality that we've seen in the Black Lodge. So we saw that lady come up to him that opened a door for him in that weird kind of motel that appeared out of nowhere, that was speaking backwards but obviously played forwards, like had that weird kind of way of talking that they did in the Black Lodge. And then we see Mr. C meet Philip Jeffries. All right, first of all, like, I get it. David Bowie's dead, so even if he had plans to bring David Bowie in, like, it probably wasn't going to work out at the time. I don't exactly know when this was shot relative to when. I think David Bowie might have still been alive then. But, like, okay, so we see later in the episode the log lady dies. The log lady has died in real life since the shooting of the episode, and so has Miguel Ferrer. I forget Agent something's name. I'm sorry, folks. I don't know all the fucking names because I did not live and breathe Twin Peaks throughout my entire life. I'm getting to know it now. I saw it when I was a kid, but I don't remember the details. I'm trying to kind of flesh this all out in my head, but I have other things going on in my life besides Twin Peaks, so I can't just think about Twin Peaks. I'm sorry. Anyway. So I don't know exactly. I'm sure David Bowie. I'm sure he approached David Bowie. David Bowie was maybe sick or something, and didn't do it because I'm sure he would have done it. I mean, you have this legendary fucking artist, and he was willing to cameo in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. So, given that is the case, then it only makes sense that he would have also been in this series given the chance. And I'm sure that it was like his health that stopped him from being in it. Anyway. That didn't stop David Lynch from bringing in, finally, the character of Philip Jeffries in the form of this black kettle, like a tea kettle, that was very large and was letting out steam. And obviously somebody was doing the voice. Maybe, I should have looked at the credits. It was not David Bowie. But they were doing kind of like that southern twang. Whatever it was that Philip Jeffries was... sort of the character was kind of portraying in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is what we heard. Anyway, there was an interaction there. It was very strange. Jeffries acknowledged that that he is Cooper. This guy is Cooper. And that they have met before, and again, it references that scene from Fire Walk with Me, which was really fucking strange at the time and made no sense. And this is kind of starting to make it make sense, obviously, but not all of it. Like, I think the name of the woman that was mentioned was Mina. It was a mystery that back then what that meant, who this person was, and it still is. Like, it wasn't made clear who this person is, and then Jeffries, the black tea kettle thing, disappeared. But he did give Cooper or Mr. C some information, right? There were numbers in that smoke. Maybe they were coordinates. That's probably what they were. Anyway, that disappears, and then he leaves, and then he encounters Audrey Horne's son. So it was Audrey Horne's son. I speculated that. I'm sure a lot of you did as well. Somebody tried to tell me online that maybe it wasn't necessarily the son, but I always figured it was. So that is definitely Audrey Horne's son. She recognized Mr. C as Cooper, seeing a photo of him. And Cooper kicked his ass and then brought him in the car and then took him with him. So Mr. C acknowledged that there is a role for this guy to play in whatever is going to go down in the next few episodes. And then they leave, and then the fucking gas station like phases in and out of fucking reality and disappears. So did it teleport? Does it exist in another dimension and comes into our dimension at key times? I don't know. We don't know exactly what's going on exactly behind the scenes of this whole situation. You know, the power, the force that is behind everything. Like, what is it? What is its nature? You know, we don't know these things. So all we can do is speculate, and that's, I think, what David Lynch wants, and I'm happy to do it because it's fun. Anyway, so yeah, so that all that stuff was really interesting. Um, and then after that, we got some snippets of stuff. We got the killing of those dudes that were tasked to kill Dougie in Vegas by Jennifer Jason Leigh. Very quick scene, brutal but cool, you know, whatever. Um, and let me see what else happened. We had the scene in the forest with that kid that was Shelley's daughter's boyfriend. Without provocation, he was with the girl he was cheating on, and he was like all fucked up, and they were freaking out. So again, like I'm thinking that this, like that, if whatever they're experiencing, whatever that dude in the cell that's like bleeding and stuff is experiencing, and that kid in the car that was like oozing whatever out of his mouth when there was honking during that weird sequence with Bobby. I think people in the town are being affected by the weird forces emanating from this weird dimension. I don't know. As a result of this big plot being enacted by whomever is behind all of this weirdness. I don't know. We don't know. But anyway, something's weird, and it can't all not be related. But maybe it is, and maybe it's just fucking weird shit. Anyway, we see that kind of weird scene. We assume that the kid shot himself. And that was it. It was very sort of quick and not clear. And I'm not surprised that it wasn't clear, because that's what David Lynch is all about. And that's why we're always going to be in the dark about some of these things, folks. And no matter what happens in the next few episodes, you're not going to know everything. And you have to be okay with that. All right. We had this stuff with... Okay, so we had that scene in the bar, in the Roadhouse bar, that usually comes at the end. But it wasn't at the end. So you figured, okay, so there's some relevance here. James is there. He gets in a fight with some guy that thinks he's like hitting on his wife, or maybe he is hitting on his wife, and I don't know. The important thing was that the guy with the green glove, the Iron Fist of Twin Peaks, punched a couple of guys. We saw there was this weird effect on their face. It wasn't just a punch. It felt like there was something more relayed. So there's like some power in this power glove, as it were. And then they get taken into prison, and then we see them in prison with that with the eyeless woman and with the crooked deputy, and then that weird guy that was oozing blood or whatever. Anyway, so we've got two weird sort of elements in that prison now. We've got the eyeless woman and the green glove guy, both kind of related to the firemen. So that's why I'm saying, like, pieces are being moved into place. Like, they're there for a reason, because some shit is going to go down, and they're going to play a role in whatever's going to come. I'm thinking that guy is going to be the only one that's going to be able to fight Mr. C, because Mr. C, we can see, is powerful. Like, he's fast. He's got increased strength relative to the normal person. So anyway, that stuff happened. We saw the death of the long lady, which was good. I like that there was a moment in the show where it just kind of honored her, and like everybody kind of had a moment of just kind of like, the woman is dead, Margaret is dead, and we had, you know, the people in the are some of the originals in the sheriff's station kind of like paying homage to her, and that was cool. And then we had that scene with Dougie. Remember Dougie, when he first appeared, when Agent Cooper... So we had that crazy episode where Agent Cooper is in the Black Lodge, and then he falls to the ground, and then he meets the eyeless woman, and then he falls into that box in New York, and then he comes out... And then eventually he comes out of an electric socket. That's what he comes out of. And now he's like drawn to the electric socket for no reason whatsoever. So you're always thinking, okay, it's going to be something that's going to wake Cooper up. And I know that David Lynch is totally playing with our expectations about what that could be. I don't know exactly what he was watching. I'm sure there's some relevance to that scene from whatever it was he was watching. It could be an old movie. It could be an old TV show. It seemed to spark something in him, but it did, and obviously it was completely unclear, but it did draw him to the the power socket. He took the fork with him, and then he presumably electrocutes himself. We don't exactly know what happened. He came out of that socket, remember? So I'm sure he's not dead, and I'm sure he hasn't electrocuted himself. I'm sure something else happened. Maybe he got sucked back in, you know? I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting. And then we have the Audrey scene, which is more kind of weird, fucking random craziness. I still can't necessarily put anything with respect to what's happening in that scene to anything else that's going on in the show. I think it's David Lynch, again, just fucking with the audience. You want Audrey? Here she is. But what she's given you is completely worthless as far as like your curiosity of the story. But love those sequences, though. They're so fucking weird. They're so perfectly Lynchian. And I hope we see more of it. I don't know if it's going to play any important role, but I like it a lot. I really enjoy it. Anyway, and then we have that final scene in the Roadhouse bar. It's like your standard kind of closing scene, but then of course it got weird quick, right? That chick was sitting in that booth, and these two guys come and they like take her out of the booth and put her on the ground. She stays sitting in the ground, and then she starts crawling through the crowd, and then she starts fucking screaming, and then the episode ends. And that's when I started clapping, because I was very happy that it was just such a fucking weird pinnacle ending to the series, to this episode. Again, not much going on, not much in terms of like tangible, substantial information, but super fucking fun and super fucking weird and super fucking Twin Peaks and you know, just more of what we all love. If you're watching these videos, you probably love the fucking show, and you love the strange Lynchian approach to storytelling. Anyway, I'm gonna say that screaming is not unrelated to the weirdness in the town. I'm saying it's related to the weirdness that kid was experiencing in the forest, the guy that's bleeding in the cell, the guy that was oozing stuff out of his mouth in the car with the honking. Something weird is happening, and it is affecting all the residents of the town, I think. Maybe I'm just completely wrong, and it's just David Lynch fucking with us, which I will be totally comfortable with because I'm used to it. Anyway, so that's my little sort of take on the stuff that happened on the show. 3 more episodes to go. It's going to be an interesting ride. I can't wait to find out what's going to happen. And I look forward to talking about it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe down here so you can keep up with other stuff that I'll be talking about. And as always, I'd like to remind you folks that if you haven't already, you better put an X in that box, because ain't nobody checking me, folks. Bye-bye.